Hello and welcome to episode 300 of the Stacey West podcast, the episode that means now we join 7 elite players on 300 appearances for Lincoln City, including, and I'm not looking here, I've memorised them, Grant Brown, Tony Emery, Alan Marriott, Gordon Hobson, Jeff Smith, Phil Neal, and I've got to check the last one. No, I think that's it, all 7. 300 episodes in, and this is the first time that something is about to happen. It's the first time that I am saying, I am your host, Gary Hutchinson, and joining me today is Ben Ward. It's a little bit of a swap around, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's reasons for it, but yeah, it's good to be on. And the fact we've hit 300 is a bit of a milestone. To be honest, I'm really chuffed to bits. It's crazy.
A milestone that George Fraser, Dan McPhail, George Wright, Harry Pringle, Fred Middleton, Harry Troops, and Roger Holmes don't appear to have hit. Actually, do you know what? I was only looking at league appearances.
Yeah.
There we go. I wonder why that's sorted like that, actually. League appearances, 315. But then Dan McPhail's on 309, and for some reason he's below George Fraser and Fred Middleton. So my facts are wrong. There we go. So my research is wrong, and I'm introducing Ben. So there's been a real turnaround from the first episode where Ben didn't do any research and his facts were wrong. How you been, mate, anyway?
Yeah, good. Yeah, all good, all busy, very busy at work. Lots of other stuff going on, but yeah, happy to be on chatting with your good self and looking back at some of the news and then ahead to the rest of the summer.
And by the sounds of things, you've got children in your basement. What's going on?
No,
there?
They're outside. They're outside the window. They're
outside the window.
Yeah, they're
You're on the second floor. What have you done? Hung them out?
We live on a cul-de-sac, and they're riding around on the in the cul-de-sac and on the bikes and stuff. So,
but you don't live in a cul-de-sac for very long because you're buying a mango.
I am buying a mango.
You need to explain that now and see if anyone finds it funny.
No,
they won't.
No, because we've not spoken about it yet. So
okay. Oh, so you're just buying a mango. Okay,
yeah.
1 minute. So episode 300, we've got a cracking montage. I envisaged it being about a minute and a half that we could play in the middle of the show, but you got a little bit carried away, didn't you, and came up with an 8-minute montage.
I didn't get carried away. It was the fact that we said, let's do this. And what I've done is I've gotten basically everybody that's been on the podcast with their little intros, and putting all those together ended up being about 8 minutes long, which is something that I didn't really anticipate. I just thought it'd be like, cool, yeah, nice and quick, and there we go. But yeah, no, it's come together really well. And going through it was quite nice to look back at some of the memories of the pod and some of the the stuff that we've done. It's quite impressive, to be honest.
And I quote from our WhatsApp. Couple of player intros as well from Ben and me putting, I think our voices will be better than the players. So actually what you did was the exact opposite, but it's
actually I will quote the WhatsApp chat as well. Because when I said about the player intros, I said it's us introducing them, and you said, nice, good idea. See, I knew you were better than me.
But it's not just us introducing them; it's all of the players. But I'm not going to argue with you, Ben, because we've done that for 299 episodes, give or take. And let's face it, Ben, we know.
This is how it feels to be lonely. This is how it
of course.
This is how it feels when Dixie knows more. Dixie knows more.
Dixie knows more.
See, it's looping, isn't it? There we go. Yeah. The fact is that we've got others in the green room. You're singing along, and the other two in the green room are dancing along. Bands.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Andy Brown says, evening chaps from Plymouth. Andy, I'm going to be down near you tomorrow. I'm going to be just south of Truro tomorrow, so not going to be far away. We've got some other comments coming in. It's only on YouTube, by the way. It's not on Facebook, so only on YouTube. So we've got a couple of other comments, but they're more related to what we're going to talk about. So it's been a busy day at Sincilbank. Now, I was lucky enough yesterday to get a bit of a heads up. I think that Luke, the media guy at the football club, who's absolutely brilliant, knew I was going away. So he's like, right, this is what we've got coming up. These are the embargo times. And it's, dear me, it's like 10:30, 11, midday. Wow. So I finished work yesterday, and like literally then I'm just sat pounding out 3 articles, like absolute madness. So what we're going to do, we've got 3 presenters, or 3 guests, 3 pundits. I mean 4, but I'm staying on. So 3 different people. We're going to talk about 3 different things, and we're going to do it chronologically. Well, we're not. We're going to start with the first, and then we're going to zip about. We're going to start with Jordan Wright. Mm-hmm. So this is the news, which I think has been around for a while. One of the Real EFL journalists got hold of it last week, which was difficult, and I'll explain why in a minute. So one of the Real EFL articles journalists got hold of it last week. So I think it's been a done deal for a while. There was a few Grimsby fans asking me the question and all that sort of thing. The reason it was difficult was I'd had a conversation with somebody at the club and was told, look, it's more or less a done deal. But it's, the deadline opens today. So these sort of deals aren't going to be announced until the window opens. And then a journalist comes and goes, Grimsby are interested in Jordan Wright. Do you know anything about it? And I think, well, the problem here is that if we publish it, Liam will then go, I told Gary that the other day, or whoever I spoke to will say, I told Gary that the other day. So I had to message said person and kind of go, look, this is what's happening. I'm not going to confirm it with anybody, but it will go ahead. So what are your initial thoughts, Benjamin?
Well, I think it's probably a decent move for him. He's obviously going to be starved of first team football at the club as long as Lucas Jensen's here. And it sounds like, well, particularly with this move happening, Sam Long's going to be coming back and be the understudy for Lucas. So he needs to get out and play first team football because he's a talented keeper. He's played really well for us in the trophy when he was on board there. I just think it's a sensible move, and the fact that he's making the step down to League Two should hopefully fill him full of confidence and lead to a decent season for him. Not too decent that Grimsby come up, but hopefully they'll be they're in need of a decent keeper. I mean, I was hearing similar things from somebody that I work with who's a Grimsby fan, and he was saying, it sounds like this is a deal done behind the scenes and all the rest of it. And all he said to me is that they're in dire need of a decent goalkeeper. And I said, well, yeah, you've got that with Jordan Wright. It's a shame that he's not been able to get that football at Lincoln City, but I mean, look at the keepers that we've had while he's been here. It's just he's a victim of circumstance, and unfortunately, it's not to be for him with us. But can't do anything other than wish him all the best because I know he'll smash it there.
You see, obviously, I'm going to slightly pull you up on something. Do you know what? I do miss doing podcasts with you because with Charlie and Chris, I never get the opportunity to do this. I don't think he's a victim of circumstance at all. I think if you're a victim of circumstances, things like injuries or players shifting positions. I don't think he ever came into Lincoln City to be the first choice goalkeeper. I think he came in to be an understudy. If over a long-term period he progressed to a point where he could be the first team keeper, then fair enough. But if that was the case, at some point we would have gone, right, we're going to stick with Jordan Wright. It wouldn't just be, well, we've got Lucas Jensen. We'd be making him a promise now to say, well, look, in 12 months' time, you'll be first choice. That's not something that we're going to do. So I can see your point with victim of circumstance, but it's not circumstance that we've gone out and got a keeper every single summer that he's been here. And if I remember correctly, was he understudy to Josh Griffiths? Or did he come in at the end of that season? He was in that season because he was in around that season. Sunderland. Yeah. Maybe it was the winter window. But under Carl Rushworth, it was the winter window. Chris is nodding, so that's good. So he's been under Carl Rushworth and he's been under Lucas Jensen, who I think are two of the best keepers ever. Yeah. To wear a Lincoln City shirt, and you put Alex Palmer in with that as well, and then you have to go back to the likes of Felgate and Grotier. So it is interesting. I think it's a good move for him. I also disagree slightly. I don't think it's nailed on that Sam Long is going to be the understudy.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if we're not working on bringing another keeper in. And I think a club like us probably should be working on 3 keepers. Now, it might be that we bring somebody in and Sam Long does stay as the understudy and then whoever else goes out on loan. I genuinely think it's going to be a 1-in, 1-out system.
Okay.
I'm saying Sam Long will... Don't say okay like I'm teaching.
No, I'm not. I'm
what you said. I you know what I mean? I might be wrong. Sam Long may well be, and we may not bring a new keeper in. But it just wouldn't surprise me if we do.
I mean, the reason I say that is because you look at the season that Sam Long's had at Falkirk. He's obviously gone there to fight for the number 1 spot, and according to some reports, he may have fallen out with their existing number one goalkeeper because he had such a good season there, and they've obviously gone unbeaten for the season there. And he was a big part of that. So to me, that indicates the kind of progress where you'd think, okay, well, he's not going to be the number one choice goalkeeper, but he would probably at least stake a claim of being that understudy to Lucas Jensen when he comes back.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, he's got to stake a claim for it. Yeah, you're right there, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But then you ask this question: is Sam Long happy having played, let's say, 70% of the games at Falkirk? There was a bit of rotation. Is he happy doing that and then come in and sitting on the bench as Jordan Wright did? Whereas if you bring somebody in, I think the goalkeeper position is unique in that if you're coming up through the ranks and you go out on loan, you get the Alex Mitchell situation where you want to play games. Whereas if you're brought in at 23, like Jordan Wright, where you've just hit a brick wall at all these clubs, you're probably then happy to sit around, play some games. I mean, Jordan, off the top of my head, and one of the boys in the green room can check this, I think has played about 30 games for us over the course of 2.5 seasons. Now, actually, for an understudy goalkeeper, that's quite a lot of football. And he's probably got the taste for it. But when he came in, did he envisage playing that many games over that longer period of time? I'm not so sure. Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he thought he could dislodge whichever goalkeeper. So, one or two people, and I think I might even have said it, were kind of like, oh, he's been unlucky, he hasn't really had a chance, or like you, a victim of circumstance. Whereas actual fact, with 30 games or whatever, behind him, and going to have that, 31, Charlie says, that's actually quite a bit of football for a goalkeeper. And I bet Chris is in the green room itching to join in this conversation, being a goalkeeper. But anyway, we'll bring him in later. But you're quite right. I think the move to Grimsby I think it's sensible. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he'll thrive in League Two. Would I have been happy if Lucas had gone and Jordan had just stepped up to be our number one? There are elements of his game, I think, that worried me a little bit. But it could have been a lack, I'm going back on what I said, but a lack of consistent football. Yeah. I mean, he was a great shot stopper. Whether he commanded his area quite as well as, let's say, Lucas did, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if every game ended in a penalty shootout, we'd probably be fine if Jordan Wright stayed and stepped up. But we know that's not the case. But there's no, I don't think there's any hard feelings in any direction in this one. It's a good move for him. It gets him off the books, for want of a better phrase, and he goes to get and enjoy first team football, even though it's at Blundell Park.
Yep. And again, people say even at Blundell Park, and I loads of people have said it on social media. I've said it with jest. I don't think there could be a better club for Jordan Wright to go to, because bar a catastrophe, the only way's up for Grimsby. Like, whoever goes there this season under David Artell, having a full first season, can only get better than last season, where they finished like third from, where they were in with the risk of relegation right to the end of the season. It surely can only get better. And at the bottom end of the league, the quality isn't that great. One of the teams coming up from the National League this season, the quality is not that brilliant. So I think it's interesting. Look, the other big news, and we'll keep Ben in for this just for a second. So we are now going to our signing. So it's one player out, it's one player in. And it's odd because I think it's the first time on the Stacey West that we've ever had the same signing twice back to back with nothing else in between. So we were chatting Conor McGrandles on the Deadline Day podcast. We haven't signed anybody since then, and now we're chatting Conor McGrandles again on a full-time deal. We'll bring Charlie in a second, but just while you're here, Ben, your initial thoughts.
I'm chuffed. I know when we spoke on the Deadline Day podcast, I said if you'd have told me this at the beginning of Deadline Day, I'd have been maybe slightly disappointed, but it was a solid signing. I think Conor proved that with his performances that he did have before his injury, in January. I think it's a really, really good signing. Like he's consistent. The slightly less important side of it is he knows the club very well. So we'll be able to slot back into basically where he was. And what I found quite interesting was the talk about him staying for his rehab with us as well, and obviously staying around the club and all of those discussions that happened. I think the wording of the announcement from Charlton's side seemed to indicate that there maybe wasn't a fee involved. We're not privy to the details of that, but yeah, I mean, it just seems like a really solid bit of business for a player that we know and we know is capable in League One, and it just adds to our midfield. If we can keep hold of everybody in that midfield, it's going to be a cracking midfield next year.
Well, let's bring Charlie in. Ben, will catch up with you again in a minute. Thank you very much. So Conor McGrandles, he's in. I think it was a 2-year deal. I mean, to pick up on a couple of points that Ben mentioned just there, he has been doing his rehab with us. The game where I presented something to Joe Taylor, I think it was Wigan, at home. We were chatting to Conor on the sideline, and he was basically saying that wasn't overly impressed, I don't think, or wasn't overly looking forward to going back to Charlton. Loved it at Lincoln, was doing his rehab here, would have been fit at the end of May. Loads of people telling me that he had been at the EPC, which, again, it is unusual for a club to do the rehab during the loan spell. Should be fit and ready to go in the morning. First of all, in the morning, at the beginning of the season. Jesus Christ,
you got planned for him tomorrow?
It's been a long day, mate. It really has. So first of all, Charlie, welcome to the 300th episode. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you for having me. It seems ages ago, but not that long ago, since episode 200, where I was just a guest sat in the 200. No, not the 200 Club, the Legends Lounge or whatever they call it now.
Was that the Mark Kennedy live? Which
yes.
was episode 200.
Episode 200 was the
Mark Kennedy,
the one with the buzzing
knocked.
And a load of different people. There was a few.
Was that episode? Was that 200?
That was 200.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, the one where Mark Kennedy made me feel about an inch tall.
Yes.
Anyway, so Conor McGrandles, Charlie, what's your take?
I think this is a really, really strong signing by the club. A really experienced player, and actually experienced with Lincoln. I was sort of surprised. I was just having a little look through his stats earlier on, that he's played more games for Lincoln City than he has for any other football club. I don't know if that should surprise me, but it did. 101, according to Transfermarkt. So, again, I just think it's a... Oh, it's okay. I'll just get shoved to the side. I think this is...
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Like I say, I think this is a really, really strong signing. To be fair, exactly like Ben said, it's bolstered the midfield in terms of our squad depth. We don't know what's going to happen with Ethan Arahan, for example, this summer. We know there's going to be championship clubs potentially looking at him. Hopefully we can keep him. And if we can, that's 3 unbelievably good League One midfielders that could probably all be playing higher, that we'll have in our ranks for next season in both the Ethans and now Conor McGrandles. I just wanted to sort of echo what you were saying as well, when you were sort of saying how when you were talking to him, what was it, at that Wigan game, and he was sort of being really complimentary about Lincoln. I was talking to him after the last game of the season, sort of just approached him and sort of said thanks for his time at Lincoln and such. But he was so complimentary for a lone player as well, bear in mind at the time. Maybe he knew that this was coming down the line, I don't know. But I've never known somebody be so complimentary of the football club as a whole, the way he was treated, whether that means that he maybe wasn't treated as well at other football clubs, I don't know, I don't want to speculate. But he just clearly has fallen in love with the people that run our football club, and that, as a fan, is one of the nicest things you get to hear. So, both on and off the pitch, I think he's going to be a real asset for the next initial 2 years as well, it says, which interests me.
Yeah. So, Harry Jackson, he's watching in, listening in. Hello, lads. I'm glad Conor is back with us, as he's been a solid player. Wish Jordan the best. Hopefully, we can make a Scandinavian signing this window and see him come good. Yeah, I think to touch on Conor, when we did the deadline day special, and we kind of, I knew it was Conor, but you guys probably didn't. I think there was a little bit of a fear that there's that word that gets bandied around, and I despise it. Underwhelming. When there's a transfer or there's something happens and somebody puts underwhelming on Twitter, and I just, for me, that screams entitlement. Like, what do you want? Like, do you know what I mean? We're not trying to whelm you over or under. Do you know what I mean? And it annoys me. And I think when he came in on deadline day, there was a lot of people who felt like that. Oh, we're just getting somebody back from the past. I mean, albeit, the Stacey West Player of the Season from the League One playoff final, which is the closest we've been to the second tier since 1961, 62, I think, when we dropped out, or 1960, 61 when we dropped out of it. So, yeah, underwhelming in that respect. However, He played 4 games before he got injured, I think. And again, if I'm wrong, somebody please pick me up on it.
Came off
4.5. Yeah. So he played 4 games for us. And I haven't seen a negative comment.
No.
Maybe I've blocked the right people, but I haven't seen any negativity about this signing at all. So what he did in 4 games was just shift an entire selection of people's mindset. And he was, by the way, outstanding in those 4 games. I thought he was excellent. He sat in nicely. He clearly reacted better to, or he reacted to Michael Skubala in the way that some of the other players did as well. What's really interesting was, I think you mentioned there, we don't know what's happening with Ethan Arahan. I actually thought you were going to say we don't know what's happening with Ethan Hamilton, because obviously he was on crutches on the final day of the season on the pitch. I don't recall seeing him at the end of season dinner, but I'm sure he was there. Yeah, I'm sure he was. I don't recall seeing a lot, and I wasn't even drunk. But his fitness is going to be questioned. I think it's up in the air at the beginning of the season. There was a discussion. I think I seem to recall that he wasn't necessarily going to be fit for pre-season. So Conor's not a temporary fix by any stretch of the imagination. But as you just said, it's nice now to know that if we do go into that period, we've got kind of 2 types of midfielder that we need. And if we play the same formation, we also need like a Mandroyu or a Bishop type player, whether they're going to come in, whether it's going to be somebody new. So I think that's also worth considering, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think, at risk of repeating something that I think we all said on the podcast at some points throughout January and February, well, February, obviously, because he didn't join until the end of January, was that he came in, replaced Ethan Hamilton, and we didn't notice that Ethan Hamilton was missing. And that's not a slight to Ethan Hamilton's ability, because bearing in mind, if he had a fully fit whole season, he would have been in the running for player of the season, because that's how good he was for the first half of the year. And Conor McGrandles came in, yes, okay, it might have only been 4.5 games, but he came in and you didn't notice that Hamilton wasn't there. So, and that's the credit that you can give to McGrandles. I think, and I'm actually going to sort of steal one of Ben's phrases there, I think actually Conor was a little bit victim of circumstance. Totally different to the way that sort of Ben was talking with Jordan Wright. But I'm thinking here about the COVID season. And this was always my case with Michael Appleton, and I think why when things started to go wrong in Appleton's second full season, people were quicker to get on his back, was because they didn't quite make that emotional connection during the good times, because we weren't there. And I have a feeling that Conor McGrandles was sort of the same. The second full Michael Appleton season, he was good. He was not bad in any sense of the word, but I don't think he was quite hitting the same heights that he was doing on our iFollow screens. And because we didn't make that connection with him, then it was like, oh, okay, we've just got this bog standard, decent enough, above average maybe, but he's only really towards average midfielder. We don't have this star that could take us to the higher level. So then when he did leave, people weren't bothered. And then obviously when he came back, that's, I think, where the underwhelming part of it came in, even though they're then forgetting just how good he was in that 2020-21 season and just how good he quite clearly can play.
Let's just touch on a couple of those points, because you say victim of circumstance, and I have to pick you up on it, otherwise Ben would not be happy. That could be in a positive way, because actually he got to play in a Lincoln City team that I think benefited from not having a crowd, because all of the young players from that season, by the way, were excellent. And I'm even talking like Robbie Gotts. I loved Robbie Gotts. Now, he really is a victim of circumstance, because he was a quality footballer that came in at Lincoln City and couldn't get a game because everyone else was playing well. Let's not forget Conor McGrandles started that season on the bench. The midfield was George Grant, Liam Bridcut, and James Jones. So actually then circumstance worked in McGrandles' favour, because James Jones got COVID and then his form dropped away. George Grant got injured and McGrandles had to step up. And I remember a game against Gillingham, the one we won 3-0, I think, away. He was outstanding. So to a degree, there could be an argument the circumstance worked in his favour. However, you are then quite right about the way that you say that the following season, there were question marks, because I remember getting really wound up at him giving the ball away. And I think it was AFC Wimbledon. We lost 1-0. I think he gave the ball away and then gave a penalty away trying to win it back in something like the first minute of the game or the last minute of the half.
5th minute, yeah, I remember it.
It was early doors. And I think also he had raised the bar to a point where we were like, well, Conor McGrandles is a really good footballer. And then all of a sudden it's, well, actually, is he? Because he was playing then in a bad team. So then is he a victim of circumstance? Also, he was playing out of position because we were looking when Liam Bridcut wasn't fit, we didn't have the players to play. So he was actually playing the holding role in front of the back four at the time. He was getting a lot of the ball and teams had figured Michael Appleton's side out. So they were putting a lot more pressure on. They were playing higher. And they knew that if they could target McGrandles, they could make him lose a ball. And that would have been any midfielder at all. So I think there is a degree of that. And then finally, the underwhelming thing, I think, also came from the talk about him moving back up to Scotland. And I think that sullied a reputation when it was, as he revealed exclusively on our Deadline Day podcast, that it wasn't actually the case.
Yeah, I think he was actually quite hurt by that, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He was.
Him.
Do you want to answer a question from Pico watching in online? Do you think Conor is the type of signing that can take us to the next level?
Yes, because I think if we want to go to the next level, we need a squad of 18 to 20 players that are all capable of playing at the top end of League One, and I think he's a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good answer. Sorry, I've just seen Chris in the green room had put that he was forced to play in a 6. I hadn't seen that. I would answer that no single player takes you to the next level. A team takes you to the next level. And I think we saw, particularly in the run in February, where we were, as we know, outstanding in every way. It was a team effort. It wasn't just Joe Taylor. It wasn't just Jack Moylan. It wasn't just Ted Bishop. It was everybody pulling together in the right way. So I think and it kind of plays into what the answer you've given. Conor McGrandles on his own to take a team to the next level? No, because I don't think it is possible. And I for a midfielder, particularly to do that, even Brennan Johnson, who's gone on to play in the Premier League, didn't take us to the next level on his own in COVID season. There was George Grant, there was Liam Bridcut, who was outstanding, there was Adam Jackson, Joe Walsh, Lewis Monsma. So no single player does. But I think he's the type of signing that if collectively we add to in the right way, will take us to the next level. And if there is no fee, as you said with Charlton, it kind of balances out Charlton being the villains and the heroes, doesn't it? But we don't want to talk about that, do we, Charlie?
No, we don't. We really don't
want to talk about that.
No.
So we're approaching the half-hour mark. Let's bring in somebody new for a second. Well, they're not that new, of course, but it's the Sunday League Pep, now retired. Chris, how you doing, mate?
Hello. Yes, I'm retired as of 2 weeks ago. Very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Been a good listen so far. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very good. We're going to say goodbye to Charlie in a minute, but just before we say goodbye to Charlie, your thoughts on McGrandles, Christopher?
Not a lot to add to really, just to kind of echo what you guys said. I think it's a really solid, a very sensible signing. We kind of said as much on Deadline Day, and I think the point you made about him kind of winning a few of those doubters over, like you mentioned, that the story he really wanted to put to bed about him wishing to move back up to Scotland, that was kind of right at the back of people's minds really after a couple of performances, because he was superb in those games. He really settled us down, and it was interesting to see Michael Scubala's comments on his influence, not just on the pitch, of course, because that was as impressive as he was in those handful of games. It was only a handful of games, but Michael kind of praised Conor's influence behind the scenes as well. He's an experienced player now in what is a young group, so I think he's going to absolutely add to that. I think it was an interesting question raised by Pico, though, about is this a sort of player that takes us to the next level? I think if you're looking at this individually, then I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that you could say yes to that question. But as part of a greater collective, we know how important depth is. We were stung by that last season, unluckily, but we were stung. And I think he adds a really high level quality to the squad. And like you said, if you have a midfield three of Ethan Arahan, a fully fit Ethan Hamilton, and a fully fit Conor McGrandles, that's a very, very, very strong midfield three at this level.
If you like pina coladas, getting caught in the rain.
I do like both of those things.
Saving up that, basically, I've gone through all of the little sound bites that we've got. I've got some more, but I've got, what have I got here?
Hi, I'm Ali Smith, and you're listening to the Stacey West podcast.
I don't know who that was.
That was Ali Smith.
Was it Ali Smith? I bet he's not listening to the Stacey West podcast. Charlie's leaving us now. We're half an hour in. We've got very strict timings. So Charlie's going out on the lash with his dad, as I understand. So we will not hear from Charlie again.
It's not the lash.
Oh, only a pint. That's the lash when you get to my age, mate. That. So enjoy, and we will see Charlie again soon.
See you later.
Yeah, so you actually have to say it rather than wave, because this is an audio product.
That's why I spoke, you know.
Yeah.
I think that was very richly deserved, actually, through his cheek.
Yeah.
And also for beating me. Oh, no, I'm not allowed to tell him about that.
No, you're not allowed to tell anyone that. Ben's just made a good point in the green room as well. He's put that we've got a very, very Scottish midfield. And we're not going to do any... Not going to do any Euro content. Obviously, Scotland are playing tonight, and I saw this great meme where it said 7 o'clock with the face of Braveheart, and then 10 o'clock, and it had Renton sat on the train station in Train Spotting with "It's shite being Scottish," and I just think, bless. And MK Spokes is looking forward to the footy tonight as well. I shall not be watching. We are going to try and keep the Stacey West a Euro free zone. The Stacey West is also, sadly, from today onwards, going to be a Chris Cohen free zone. That's an awkward segue, I'll be honest.
I thought it was all right.
You think that was all right?
I thought it was okay. Yeah.
300 episodes in. I expect to be able to manage a segue these days. Anyway, so Chris Cohen, I don't think it's a huge surprise, but it was a shock in that he's signed for Stoke City. The undertones are, I think, that in order to get him here and sign a permanent deal, that we've basically said to him, if we don't go up, we will allow you to move to a championship side. And a championship side have come in Stoke City. Stephen Schumacher, good up-and-coming young coach. It puts Chris Cohen back into the championship. I'm not so sure, having read through about compensation, a lot of people saying, well, there must be a lot of compo. If we have that gentleman's agreement where we're allowing him to go and do his thing in the championship, I can kind of understand that we wouldn't then put a barrier in that, but I don't know whether that's the case or not. So when I say it's not a surprise, I'm not surprised he's wanted to move on to the championship. I'm not surprised it's happened, but it's a shock in that there wasn't any real undertones of it actually happening. What are your initial thoughts on that, Mr. Lamming?
Well, disappointment initially, of course, because it's pretty obvious what his influence was. You know, we had the privilege of that evening with the head data analyst. I forget the guy's name now.
Logan.
Thank you. Yeah, Logan. And he worked quite closely with Chris Cohen and was very, very complimentary in the influence that he's had in the short time he'd been there. I don't think there's a huge amount of you haven't got to build many bridges to kind of reach the conclusion that we started winning when Chris Cohen was part of the football club. You know, he had a real big role to play in that regard. So it's going to be a big miss. I think this is certainly the bigger of the two departures in terms of how it impacts us going forward. And in relation to kind of the type of deal it may have been, I think the way maybe we could compare this would be when George Grant left to go to Peterborough. So George Grant was out of contract at the end of the year, and the only reason that he was kind of going to, the only way that we kind of could convince him to sign that additional year or two was that we kind of had that agreement that if we didn't get promoted that season, then he would be free to leave for a championship or above club. And we didn't go up, and that happened. It's not a surprise that other clubs of a higher level are very aware of him and are wanting him to be part of their back room. You know, he has experienced the Premier League as a coach, assistant manager, I think, and has also coached in the Championship previously as well. So it was actually a bit of a coup for us to get him at the first time. I remember us mentioning how kind of impressed we all were that we was able to get that over the line at the time with his pedigree. So he's kind of going back to the level that he probably deserves to be at, let's be completely honest. It's a real shame for us, but he had a big role to play in that few months this last season. And I'm sure he goes with the best wishes, but it will be a big hole to plug, definitely. But also, it's probably the best time of the season. If you're going to lose any sort of member of staff, doing it before pre-season even starts is the best time because it gives you a chance to kind of recruit again.
Yeah, a couple of points. First of all, Adam Francis says that he thinks Chris Cohen will be a miss. Look at the form after he came in, young and progressive coach, but full faith in the club regarding the next appointment we'll come on to. Now, I think if an assistant, we'll call him assistant manager, assistant head coach, whatever. if he goes, that can be a big loss. If he goes during the season, you'll have a skills gap to try and fill. It affects the day-to-day running. He goes in June when pre-season training hasn't started. Yes, it's a blow, but it doesn't have, I don't think, such a negative impact. Now, we'll still need to replace him, and there will still be an impact. But it's not like they're going to go into work tomorrow and like we're a man down. And we all know it. We all have jobs. If we go into our job and somebody isn't there one day, it's harder to work. It's a little bit more manic. There's more for other people to do. When there's that interim period, I think sometimes when an assistant manager or an assistant head coach goes during the season, certainly when Mike Garrity left, because Mike Garrity was very much Mark Kennedy's right-hand man. Certainly years ago when Neil MacDonald left, because he was Peter Jackson's right-hand man. Chris Cohen was part of a trio. So let's not forget that actually Tom Shaw is also assistant head coach. And if you look at the pictures of them on the touchline and things like that, it's very much a three. So actually, if we were to go back into training tomorrow, whilst there is a skills gap, Michael Skubala and Tom Shaw have worked together as a double act until Chris Cohen came in. Chris came in, I think, on the eve of the, I want to say Wickham game, but it might have been one of the Derby or Peterborough games. It was around that time, wasn't it? But actually, Tom and Michael had worked before. And the upturn in form, yes, it coincided with Chris coming in, but it also coincided with us having that break post FA Cup. And it also coincided with us bringing in Joe Taylor, being able to play Jack Moylan, getting Rico Hackett back fully fit, and Freddie Draper coming back in as well. So whilst, yes, there was an upturn in results when Chris Cohen came in, yes, he's undoubtedly a vital cog. It would be remiss to set a narrative that it's going to that it's the be all and end all, I think, of the progress we've made.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think it's by no means should we say it was all because of Chris Cohen that we had the fantastic run, but he played a valuable part just as much as the list that you kind of just shared there. And so yeah, is it a shame? Yes. And because there wasn't really much of a build up, did it kind of come out of the blue a little bit? Yes, but it's absolutely deserved. And I have, as Adam mentioned, just got full faith in the club to recruit and replace him, because they've earned that, haven't they? The club have earned our trust in that regard. There haven't been many misses. Even Mark Kennedy, as we look back on now, I think at the time there was some real value to that appointment, and he still had a role to play in the development of this club. We probably wouldn't have been able to attract Michael Skubala if the club was in the state it was at the time Mark Kennedy took over. So even those ones that maybe there is a little bit of bad blood or some sour grapes here and there, at the time there's some real value in that. So I don't think the club have had many misses at all in regards to recruitment, particularly with staff. Most of the staff that have left us have gone on to bigger clubs or at a higher level. Almost all of them, bar I think the analyst that went to Grimsby, I forget his name, but most of them.
Hutchinson. How can you forget his name?
Well, easily. So there was the fitness coach who went back to Paul Warne at Derby, and there's others, of course. So. Yeah, to kind of maybe draw a line under this a little bit, it's a shame, but it's not the end of the world, and we've got every faith that the club can push on. At this time of the year, the most important element of any kind of football club is player recruitment. That's the tool to do your job with ultimately on the pitch. We already have two incredibly capable coaches, and the right kind of due diligence will be done, I imagine, in the next few weeks to be able to add to that. Which is what Chris did. I think that's a point to make a point of here is Michael came in, worked with Tom, and rather than bringing someone in straight away, there was an agreement that Michael was going to kind of analyse the strengths of the coaching stuff at the moment, where maybe the gaps were, and then recruit someone that fitted into that, that added to the skills that he already had. So I think that's all we need to do again, is just add to kind of what is already a really kind of talented coaching team.
I think it'll be an easier appointment this time as well, because, as you say, Michael Skubala came in to assess what we needed, realised we needed probably the extra hand in the coaching and maybe a certain profile. He will know which profile that is now. And given that the club almost always have a backup for a backup. So if Michael Skubala went tomorrow, they would already have a shortlist in their mind of managers. If like Lucas Jensen went tomorrow, they would have a goalkeeper that they thought that they could bring in. If Jordan Wright went today, they'll have a goalkeeper they think that they can bring in Monday or Tuesday, or that it can be that quick. And I genuinely think that's probably the position that we're in with the assistant head coach. And I don't think there's any doubt that we will replace There's no point in anybody speculating who that might be, because it'll be somebody that we won't know. Nobody knew Mike Garrity. Okay, people knew of Chris Cohen, but do you know what I mean? It could be anybody. It could be anybody from anywhere. It could be somebody that Michael Scaval has met on the coaching course that he's just completed. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so, just think where we recruited Logan Hughes from. Wellington Phoenix in New Zealand for a performance analyst. So if the club have got knowledge of staff that far reaching, then like you say, it could be anybody that they've had their eye on for a while. So it'd be interesting to see who we do bring in. But I think, let's be honest, the more kind of interesting and sexy recruitment kind of news over the summer is players. The coach will just kind of be a bit of bonus content, I think, later down the line in the summer.
Talking of bonus content, because this isn't on our list, but I think we're pretty much done talking about Chris Cohen, as there's only so much you can say. News coming out of South London today: Alex Mitchell, Charlton have agreed a deal with Millwall, so they've met the asking price, whatever that might be. Personal terms appear to have been agreed, so it looks like, although we did get one of our loan men back, we will not be getting the other loan man back, Mr. Mitchell.
It's a shame. Makes total sense from Alex's perspective there, doesn't it? He's had a very, very successful season at League One level, really impressed with us. And we all kind of experienced his, just how much he kind of connected with the football club. I think we all appreciated that. You don't get that from a lone player very often. So that's probably why it stings isn't really the right word, but just a disappointment really. But, Alex clearly wasn't going to be getting in at Millwall. I think that was made pretty clear their end, but was absolutely going to be a very sought after player at this level. I fully expect the financial package that Charlton are able to offer him is going to be significantly higher than the most we could possibly afford to offer. And it's a London-based football club, and he's a London lad. So, I imagine the financial package is significantly higher than here. And also, it's just he hasn't got to uproot his whole. It's not just did he like his time in Lincoln? It appears he obviously did enjoy his time here, but if his whole upbringing, his friends and family and loved ones and that comfort zone is in London, then it makes sense for him to stay there. It would be it would have had to, I imagine, really break the bank to get Alex Mitchell in over a club like Charlton Athletic that have the financial power that we don't. And we know no matter who the player is or how influential they've been, we're not going to do that for anybody. The club has a very, very strict kind of financial structure, because that is required for us to be sustainable and for us to continue to grow at the level that we are. So, yeah, it's a shame, but I absolutely wish him the very, very best of luck if he does end up going there. I think all of us would do. Obviously, Charlie would kind of echo that probably more loudly than any of us would. But he was a really valuable part of our season last season. Yeah, but it's not surprising.
No, let's be brutally honest. Charlton are a bigger club than Lincoln City.
Yeah, of course.
Whether we finish above them 2-3 seasons in a row, whether they've been shit for a while, whatever, they're a big club. And when they hit their stride, they'll do what Ipswich have done. They'll do what Portsmouth have done. They'll do what Sunderland have done. They'll leave League One behind. Now, whether that's with Nathan Jones, that's the gamble that Alex has to take. I wouldn't want to have to make that choice as a 22-year-old, because when I was a 22-year-old, I used to make most of my choices using not a part of my body that sits behind my eyes. And the worrying thing is, I'm sure that's not the case with Alex, but when you're young, it's harder to see clearly. And if somebody is, when I say hard to see clearly, that's not to say he's made the wrong decision. But there are certain things that appeal to you at a certain age, and I think it can be hard. For instance, if you ask Conor McGrandles now, would he sign a new deal with Lincoln 2 years ago, or would he go to Charlton? He would sign a new deal with Lincoln. So there is a warning about Charlton. If you ask a lot of the players who have been through Charlton over the last couple of years and they've failed and Charlton have struggled and the fans have got on their back, they would say the same. But it's Charlton. They're a big club. As Alex Mitchell, if he connects with the fans, if Nathan Jones recreates his Luton success, which he hasn't recreated anywhere else, by the way, but if he recreates his Luton success, they'll be top 6. He'll be adored in London. He'll thrive. And you're more likely, if you're a centre-back putting in mental good performances at Charlton, you're more likely to get recognised than if you're a centre-back putting the same performances in at Lincoln City. Sadly, that's the way it is. Let's get Ben's opinion on this. He's been sat there patiently nodding away occasionally in the private chat. He's very needy, but we'll bring him back in. What's your thoughts, Ben, on Alex Mitchell?
Yeah, it's a sensible move for him. I think in terms of location, it's obviously gutting. He was the kind of character that you love to see come in at your football club. I saw somebody describe it as a bit of a holiday romance more than a long-term relationship, and it's probably the best way of looking at it. It's just a shame that he's not going to be here with us next season, but I'm sure everybody will give him a decent welcome when he comes back until he steps, on the pitch for the 90.
Yeah. I mean, exactly that. Now, we do have another topic to talk about before we start the back slapping and all that sort of thing. And I find it particularly interesting because earlier this week, something blew up a little bit on social media and on the Vitals forum, which I quite like the Vitals forum now. Do you know what? People were really critical of the Vitals forum 3 or 4 years ago. And I could, whether I say I can understand why, people had their reasons. But actually, there's balance on there, probably more so than some, certainly on social media, and there's more informed. So it is worth checking out. But on the Vital forum, Clive basically came onto a thread after rumours of Lucas Jensen being in conversation with Rotherham, which were absolutely untrue, broke, and was quite scathing about the rumours and kind of people who were saying, they've heard this when it's completely not true. Now, it sparked a really interesting debate because a lot of people were saying we need to hear these rumours because that's what keeps us going over the summer. I mean, it's June the 14th. We've only been without football for 40 odd days. Seriously, the Euros kick off. But anyway, some people need that now because that's how news is consumed. It's every day. If I write an article in the morning, people want something to read in the evening. It's not waiting for the echo anymore. So one camp says we need these rumours, we need this discussion, we need these things thrown out, these little scraps for us to feed on. And then there's the other side of the debate of people that go, we just do not need this at all. Don't report a rumour. Don't report even a newspaper report until it's signed, sealed and delivered. I'm going to throw this first of all over to Ben. Which camp are you
in? Not like me at all. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. It's fun to read some of the speculation, but then, with all of the hundreds of thousands of fake agent accounts on Twitter or wherever it is, somebody will pick it up and somebody will run a news story on it. So it gets to a point where it's like, well, what's a reputable place where a rumor would get picked up and published? Obviously sites like the Real AFL and other places are available that are reputable, and that they won't go through things without properly sourcing the rumors. But it's just when if you're casually browsing through News Now or wherever, it's like, oh, Lincoln City linked with XYZ. You think, oh, okay, and you click on it. You don't, if you're reading it as a casual Lincoln City fan, or casually as a Lincoln City fan, I should say, if you're reading through it, you don't look at it and go, oh, I wonder how much truth there is in this. You just see it. If it starts to pop up in a couple of places, most people will read it and go, oh, there must be some truth in that. Someone's published it.
I think if it's on News Now, it's different because News Now have really strict guidelines that you have to cite your source. So if you're on News Now, you have to put as reported by this, that, or the other. So, and I agree with you. I'm in the middle as well. But I think if it's on News Now, 9 times out of 10, there will be something in it, unless it's the rule of 3, which I've obviously picked up on, or unless it's somebody quoting an ex-agent on Twitter. And if it is, those accounts should be removed from News Now. I think the problem is when it's somebody in the know at the club, or it's a fan who's like, I had 4 or 5 messages that morning. So it's all right saying that the guy who tweeted out, I've heard it, he did it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'd had that same rumor coming to me at 9 o'clock in the morning. So this isn't pointed at one person going, you tweeted this. This is a general thing. That rumor has come from somewhere. People who I respect, who I don't think particularly in the know, are saying, I'm hearing Lucas Jensen's going, well, that's brilliant. I'm hearing my dog farting at the side of me, but it doesn't mean he's going for a turd. Do you know what I mean? you can hear stuff all the time. I mean, Chris, where do you sit on this?
Further, not in the middle. I'm closer towards I don't like it. But it's because of where it comes from. I think if the news that we were reading was less, because I think the majority of it, the vast majority of transfer news that's on, particularly on social media, is generally made up by someone in their bedroom. There's not a lot out there which is genuinely reputable, and it all then gets mixed in with the reputable sources that are kind of few and far between. If the only information that was available came from a reputable source, then of course you understand when the news travels that there's a bit more behind it. Whether it comes off or not, you tend to believe it a little bit more. So I really dislike it because almost all of it is just frankly bollocks. So, yeah, it really frustrates me, probably as much as it frustrates Clive. But I think there's also the other element that you can't avoid it. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. And what I really liked was the fact that Clive was quite so forthright in saying, stop it, basically. You know, the club are doing their thing. Let us get on with it so we can do the best job possible. And I think that's one thing that's very, very different now than it was maybe even as recently as like 3 or 4 years ago, is the club keep an incredibly tight ship now. So we know, so particularly you guys that obviously gets a little bit more access in terms of so you can write your articles and things when there is news. There's that's obviously incredibly valuable for you and others all, and the fan base. But it's very rare that you get that news, and it's something that's already been out there already. You know, most of the rumours are mostly unfounded because the club is so good at keeping a tight ship. Whereas some of the rumours out there it's not even some, it's probably the majority of football clubs are going to be started, some by kids in their bedroom, but some by agents, some by players themselves, some by clubs that are trying to generate a little bit of interest. I think at Lincoln, because there's so little that comes out there directly, and we know it's less trustworthy if we have heard it because, my barber knows Danny Mandroyu's agent and he said this. Like, we know that that's not true because we know that doesn't come through the club anymore.
I think it's interesting to see just how much comes from the other side now, because like you say, if the club is such a tight ship, all of a sudden you've got to look at the other end of the deal, like all the stuff around Jordan Wright for well, at least from my knowledge, came from people that were more close to Grimsby and other sources with other clubs, because it's obviously, you mentioned the stuff about the embargoes. Embargoes are a thing everywhere, and it's like you will get the press release, Gary, at some point ahead of the release, and then you go, cool, well, I know this, so I can get my news done, and then the club control the flow of the information, and people obviously go, oh, that's quite why would they do that if we need to know. It's like, well, you do need to know, but the reason that the club control the flow of information is because they want the picture of the player in the shirt, they want the news that the player signed to go out at a specific time, and that side of it, I'm all for. Like that's part of a bit of the media circus, isn't it? For when you sign somebody.
I'll be honest, an embargo can kill me because I can get the embargo and then the news breaks that we're being linked with the player that I know we're going to sign, and I'm like, well, I can't write about it now, can I? And I think the important thing here to pick up on as well is the different levels of rumor. And you guys have said, if it's transfer centre 9 on Twitter saying we're going for a shock move for George Grant, it's probably rubbish. And if it's somebody with 400 followers that started in a January or a June, they've started it at transfer window time. Yeah. They're just making up rumours. I mean, TC9, I think it is one of the accounts that I genuinely think it's a guy sat there going, that meme where it's Ant and Dec going, now say this, and they're laughing. I genuinely think so. It's like, now say Lincoln are going to sign Pele, and you will get some muppet who will go, wow, Lincoln are going to sign Pele. It's like, well, first of all, I think he's dead. Is he dead, Pele?
Yes.
I think he died, didn't he? Yeah. So we're probably not going to sign him. But do you know what I mean? You'll get that. However, you then have things like the Belfast Telegraph printing that we were still looking at Lee Bonnis. When I checked that rumor with the club and that's not true. That I can live with because I can live with an official news source putting something out there, true or not. Now, maybe that's hypocritical because what's the difference between a newspaper putting it out there for general consumption when it's not true, or a sweaty guy in his bedroom doing it because he wants 10 more people to think that he's an agent when actually he's doing his GCSEs? There isn't a huge amount of difference. But once you put Belfast Telegraph above it or another reputable name above it, or even an unreputable name like Alan Nixon, he writes for the Sun. But if he puts a transfer thing out, people will go, well, that's probably going to happen. He writes for the Sun. Do you know what I mean? I do it. If Nixon puts it out there at the Real EFL, we can then get views, and we know that nobody's going to go, well, that's rubbish. Well, Nixon said it. He's a proper journalist.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that is the transfer window, isn't it? And I think that it's about striking the balance. And I think it's about where the rumours come from. And I think it's about, if it's TC9 and all of the kind of happy clappers go, we must be doing it, and they don't understand it, fair enough. If it's from a newspaper, fair enough. But if it's somebody, that people respect, if it's me suddenly going, we've accepted a bid for Ethan Arahan, it'll be £500,000, people pile on that. And that's not being arrogant, not being arrogant, but the Stacey
That's a
West
clip.
generally. But
That's
yeah,
a clip,
no,
right?
but generally the Stacey West is regarded as not
Yeah.
putting out stupid rumours. The same with like All Lincoln, Joe at All Lincoln wouldn't do that. Jules at Vitals wouldn't do that. You know, those people wouldn't do it. So interesting. Can I ask you both? Oh, sorry, go on, Chris.
I was just well, then maybe might be the same question. I'm not sure. I'm saying so we discussed our opinions on kind of the transfer circus, but I suppose the news really was the fact that Clive was so vocal on social media and invite us to really nip it in the bud. I was just interested to know your opinion on. Did you like that Clive was quite so, I suppose, forthright with it and quite strict and quite forward with his approach? I know I loved it personally.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic that you get a chairman that's going, no, basically shut up. This is bollocks. Let us get on with it. That's basically kind of what it came across like, and I really liked that. But yeah, I don't know if everyone did. I just wonder what you guys thought.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I thought it was, it is slightly out of character for Clive. He obviously is, outspoken on Twitter with some things, but to kind of be as visceral with his reaction as he was, you kind of look at it and go, oh, okay, somebody's.
You have to have seriously messed up to get that response. Is kind of how I felt, which is why I thought it was really just.
I hadn't seen the response on Vitals until we started. Well, we were talking about doing this section, and when he says, "I can't tell you how effing angry it makes me that a supposed Lincoln City fan would make up a bullshit story like this just to pretend he is in the know." You can tell that it's just lit a fuse under him.
I'm just going to slightly defend the guy with the story, just to say there's no evidence that he made it up. It may genuinely be something. But bear in mind, I had it first thing in the morning, so it could have come from anywhere. It's whether it's amplifying it. So I don't think it's specifically, in my opinion, I don't think it's specifically that tweet.
Yeah, somebody has made the story up to pretend.
I think it's the general point, isn't it? Is kind of what Clive's frustrated at. Someone has made this up, and it's that's unfounded, and it's frustrating.
Clive's response was definitely aimed at that tweeter, but that's not necessarily where it came from. So, yeah, look, I think some chairmen are too outspoken on social media. Darragh McAntony has too much to say. Andy Holt occasionally has too much to say. But I would rather that there was saying something. I would rather a Darragh McAntony or an Andy Holt than a chairman that did nothing, that had no personality, had no engagement with fans. Because at least with Darragh, at least with Andy, and to a degree, with Clive as well, there's that level of integration. And for me, interaction rather, and as soon as you interact, that kind of demonstrates that you're coming from a place of emotion a little bit, because you are Peterborough's chairman, Accrington's chairman, Lincoln's chairman. Things do bother you that get said. It's all right staying stoic and silent. It's the same with Liam, wasn't it? After the Bristol Rovers game, people criticise him for being aloof and kind of standoffish, and then he gets involved with the referee, and they criticise him for getting involved with the referee. So, where's the happy medium? Though the quick question I wanted to ask, and it will have to be quick because we're on the hour, and I had the strict timings, and Ben said we were going to hold us to him, and he hasn't. We've got an 8-minute montage to listen to in a minute.
Put that on me.
I was warned, by the way, before we started this podcast, so I suppose I'll have to just take the blame anyway.
Well, I can hear Fee starting the Dylan, so if I give it another 10 minutes, I might have to fry chicken. So Mark Kennedy gone to Swindon. Really kind of quick response. First of all, Ben, will he be a success?
No.
Well, that was a quick response, Chris.
I'll try and be quick, but not as quick as that. Depends what Swindon defines success as, because they've been really on a negative spiral for a while. He could be. He could be. Yeah, he might be. I think one thing that's really interesting is we associate him with that negative, if you like, defence first football, but that isn't how we started playing here. We started playing quite openly. He got kind of scared when we had that 6-3 game and we were too open, and it was from that point that we went quite defensive, and he never really developed back from that point. I kind of get the opinion that he kind of wants to go back to how he was playing beforehand. He was kind of defending that kind of tag that he's been associated with, I think, in his interview with Swindon. But I don't know. My gut feeling is he's not going to be a success in that he'll get them promoted this season. Will he maybe stop the rot there? Maybe. I'll be honest, this is going to sound really harsh. I don't care.
Yeah.
Do you know what I asked? And I I don't know. Do you know what? Actually, part of me, I listened to his interview, and I just thought, there was as much sour grapes in there as I probably still have. There was some of the stuff that he picked up on. What my last club, we didn't sign this, and I wanted to. I thought that was a problem. I don't know.
I think what was interesting with that
disingenuous.
is how he was coming across to some of his criticism for the club in his Swindon interview was again apart from the recruitment strategy, but he was clearly going to have been well aware of that recruitment strategy when he was being interviewed at Lincoln. He was clearly bought into that. So I think some of that was a little bit playing to the crowd a little bit, almost criticising something that he was clearly a believer in and backing at the point that he got the job. So I'm not going to go too far as saying that I wish him ill or I hope he's not successful. I'll be surprised to see Swindon challenging for automatic promotion this season, shall we say? But I wouldn't be surprised to see them kind of in that lower part of the top half, if that makes sense, kind of a playoff chaser, because you don't need to be that good as a team to be a playoff chaser in League 2. You need to be hard to beat, and you need to be relatively consistent. And I think he can give them that.
Quick answer.
Sorry, shit.
No, we are on episode 300. We've done our hour. So it's time for a little bit of backslapping. What we're going to do in a moment is play out with a montage. So we'll all disappear from the screen, but it's well worth a listen. Ben's picked out some of the key moments, some of the best bits. He's also included some clips of himself as well, just for balance in there, which was really nice. So that's all good. We've got some of the best bits, but 300 episodes. First of all, we'll go to Chris, who has been with us for more than 100 of them now. Must be
something like that, wasn't it? My very first one was after Cambridge away 2-0, I think, defeat. In Mark Kennedy's first season.
So that was just before 200, wasn't it?
Well, we did 200 in the February.
That season,
and that was in the September. So you're probably we weren't doing 2 a week back then, though. So you're probably about 120 episodes. Is that your highlight? The first one has just been all downhill from there.
No, on a personal note, it was a real highlight because I was a listener, and I love listening to you guys ever since it launched. And I came along to the Michael Appleton interview, thought it was brilliant before I even knew either of you guys properly at all, and I loved it. So to have the genuinely, without wanting to sound too sycophantic here, with having the opportunity to talk about football, I thought it was just going to be as a one-off episode. I was obviously chuffed a bit. So for that to become a fixture is something I've absolutely loved. But the genuine highlight was, I think, the transfer deadline day live stream. It was mind blowing that we had so much interaction and so many people that was watching, but also it was incredibly humbling. And I think just the best bit, just to learn that not only was it really well received by the fan base, but actually within the club as well. I think it was quite affirming that what we do is valuable, because we do it because we enjoy it and we like to think we know what we're on about, but we are just fans at the end of the day. So to know that there was an element of buy-in from the football club that was a real highlight for me. So yeah, that's mine.
Brilliant. And Ben, I mean, we say 300 episodes. You and I have obviously missed a fair few, but we've been around since the beginning. I suppose it's going to be hard to pick a highlight from 300, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual podcast, I think the obvious highlights are the live ones. Going from doing the one with Michael Appleton and Toff, just being asked if we wanted to do something like that by the club and helping get that set up, and then it being in the boardroom, it was quite intimate. It was quite, I think there was about 20 or 30 people there. To going up to episode 200 in the Legends Lounge. Selling it out, I suppose. Getting 200 people in there was Chris, you said it was humbling to have the club be involved and get the interaction. To kind of say, right, can we have a round of applause to start so I can fade it in? And it just, that was a really, really humbling moment. But it's just been all of those little moments that have added up. It's been fantastic. I think in terms of a personal one, like the moment of crossing the line at the 10K was pretty special. The fact that it was way out of my vision to even finish that bloody thing, but then managing to do it in the amount of pain that I was in was really special. And it came at the end of a bit of a tricky time for away from the podcast and everything. But yeah, to do that and go out for a few drinks with you guys afterwards was pretty special. But I am never getting overly drunk with you guys ever again, except maybe Gary's party.
And then maybe Christmas time,
and then maybe Christmas. And then, yeah. But no, just on the whole, like it's been an absolute pleasure. Like to go from talking to you outside the centre spot and saying, "Have you ever thought about doing a podcast?" to like sitting in front of 200 people with the manager, the CEO, one of the player, the captain of the club, and former managers. It's just been phenomenal.
Good. Another quick answer. I was trying to think of my highlights, and there's the obvious ones, as you say. I think the Michael Appleton live really stood out.
Yeah.
Because it was the first one, and it was we didn't know what to expect. And I really liked the sofas at the front, and the 200 one. It stands out for so many different reasons as well, which was crazy. But I don't know. Do you know what? There was one moment that stands out for me where you put together a montage of me, where some music for me to slag off Forest Green, and I went on for about 3 minutes slagging off Forest Green. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed one of the former players ones that I did, which was with Roger Holmes. And we've had some great former players. We've had Gav Gordon, we've had Simon Yeo, I've had Colin Alside. We've hopefully got some good ones coming up as well. But I don't know why that one it really stood out for me. I really enjoyed that. And then I probably just have to say my other highlight is every time somebody says, I listen to the podcast and I've got no idea who they are. And I always try and find out who they are, and I forget a face as soon as I've seen people, and then someone will come up and say, I spoke to you the other week, and I feel rude. But it's when people say that. And it's not. I love that the club listened. I love that Logan said that Michael Scavala told him to listen. I love that the deadline day was on. Another highlight, by the way, which was really good. I love that was on at the club. But it's actually reaching everybody else. It's reaching the quiet fans. There's a book by Ian Plenderleith, who's a Lincoln City fan and a writer who wrote a book called The Quiet Fan. And he writes about the fan that doesn't collect shirts, that doesn't run podcasts, that doesn't do a blog, that isn't part of a fans group. The guy that just goes on a Saturday, watches, has a few beers with his mates in an evening, and then goes home, and that's his football. And he doesn't define his life on a Sunday or a Monday. It's those people coming up to me and going, I listen to the podcast. It's the people wearing the hoodies and stuff like that I really like. And that, it sounds so twee, but they're the people I'm really pleased that we reach, because that would be me if I hadn't been Poacher the Imp and that hadn't led to everything else. That would be me. If Chris hadn't come on and done the one podcast, that would be him. If Ben hadn't been in the band, do you know what I mean? So that would be us. And we've kind of worked into a position, or we've been worked into a position where actually we now have this platform. And the fact that other people go, yeah, I'll listen to that. That's what I really like. So shall we play out the montage? What I suggest we do is we all disappear off screen, because I don't think anybody wants to just look at us going, oh, yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good. But we've got an 8-minute montage. If you're one of the 39 people listening on YouTube, or watching on YouTube rather, this is going to be really, really good to listen to. So I think all that really to say is thank you. And I think you guys would probably like to say the same.
100%.
Well, go on then.
So thank you.
We did, yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for listening for 300 episodes. I haven't got a glass, but here's to 300 more. You've got a montage coming up. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Stacey West blog podcast. I'm Ben, and joining me as my co-host, I guess, is Gary. How are we doing, Gary?
Hello, Ben. Yeah, not bad, mate. How are you?
The only man I know who's tried to play a gegenpress against Jerusalem reserves, and who during his wedding vows will doubtless make his wife to swear, "Thou shalt always play 3 at the back." Welcome, Rugby FC manager Chris Lamming.
Thank you very much for having me, Gary.
I'm here with Jake. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Ben, we've lost again, and I'm on the podcast.
So we have some irregular guests week in, week out, and one of the most irregular of all is joining me today. It's Charlie Beeston. How are you doing, Charlie?
I'm not too bad. Oh, most irregular.
One of the most irregular.
With Mr. Lincoln City himself, Alan on. How are we doing?
Oh, very well, thanks, Ben. How are you?
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll introduce Liam Scully.
Yeah, I think.
What? Danny and Nicky have got.
With Liam Scully, hello, and with Mr. Clive Nates. How are we doing?
Hi Ben, yeah, a bit cold still after spending an afternoon watching us at Sheffield United.
Yeah,
but hopefully you guys will have one there.
Oh, well, it's not that time. Well, misunderstood what we do here. I feel a bit bad now.
Can we please welcome Mr. Harry Toffolo?
Technical difficulties on the Stacey West podcast. There's a...
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please welcome Michael Appleton.
Me too. It's exciting, mate. Yeah, I mean, episode 100. Yeah, obviously we've got to mention about the what the club put out earlier as well, with in conjunction with Mr. Wright. I'm delighted to be joined by Harry Anderson. He has been voted 25th best player of a generation, the highest placed member of the current squad. How does it feel, Harry?
I'm absolutely over the moon. I really appreciate all the votes.
He says it's unusual that there's no talk of XG today. I am delighted to be here with yet another Lincoln City legend. I seem to be making a habit of it on this show. A record appearance holder, Mr. Grant Brown. Congratulations, Grant, on placing in the top 25.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's a great honour, great privilege to be recognised by the fans and it's
Right, so I'm here with number 13 on our list, Alan Marriott, record appearance holder, I think, for a goalkeeper. First of all, congratulations on being voted in the at 13th, mate. How does it feel?
Thank you very much. Obviously, it's a massive honour. You look back at the history the football club's had throughout the amount of people there.
Okay, so I'm absolutely delighted to be here with a bona fide Lincoln City legend. You voted him as the 5th player, best player of a generation. Gordon Hobson, congratulations on the vote. How does it feel?
Hi, Gary. Yeah, a bit humbling, really.
So I am here with Simon Yeo.
Thanks, Ben.
I've been joined by Graham Burrell. He's here live and in person. You may know him as Bubs, photographer at the club. Pleasure to have you here, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here at last, Gary.
We are joined, very graciously, by Mark Cohen. How are we doing, Mark? You okay?
I'm all right, Ben. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 200 of the Stacey West podcast. I am Ben and Gaz is with me. How are you, mate?
It's great because normally all the technical difficulties nobody hears. So we do this every single week. Every time we record, Ben, we struggle. So they're the main men, Mark Kennedy and Danny Butterfield. Here we go. Before we get started, was it an unfortunate accident that you, Mark and Danny all wore the same hoodie, or is it coordinated? All right. It wasn't, you weren't kind of, you turn up and go, oh, not you as well.
We're on brand.
You are on brand.
Giacomo have a sale.
Oh. And if I was going to pick one summer signing whose picture I would have on the wall, it would be Paulie O'Connor, ladies and gentlemen.
Much to discuss. It's very exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting, yeah, it is. It's certainly more exciting than some of the football that we've seen, I think, in recent weeks. It's strange because I think usually when a manager's sacked, there's an element of fear going into the uncertainty. I remember the last time we fired a manager, it was Gary Simpson. We appointed Chris Moyes almost immediately. I remember reacting quite badly to that. And Dave Parman, who was a director at the time, messaged me and said, it's a good appointment for us. Come and join me in the boardroom one day, and you'll see. And I actually went in the boardroom the day that Fee and I had an interview to move back to Lincolnshire. So it's while I was living in Cambridge. So I remember it, and it seems like a lifetime ago. it seems like such a long while ago that Lincoln City were in the sacking business, but Mark Kennedy made it very clear last week he was in the sacking business, the business of getting sacked. That's kind of what he said. Look, now I've had some issues pronouncing names, Paul, I'm going to be honest, and you sent me a voice note of how to pronounce it, and I've already think I forgot. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this is former Lincoln City loanee Sheffield Wednesday goalkeeper Paul Degare.
Degare, that's correct. Over the time during my period there, it was one which the stadium or the ground announcers never got right. And when I came back last year, early this year, and I spoke to Alan on the pitch at half time, that was one of the questions that were thrown at me. And yeah, you got it right. It's Degare. A lot of them were like Degaris. It was just like, no, it's not pronounced like that. Degare.
So we are indeed here in Liam's office with Clyde Nates and Harvey Jabara. How are we doing, guys?
Doing great. Good to meet you guys.
Not too bad, but great to see you guys again.
It's always a pleasure. So
this is one of the moments you've been waiting for. It's a super special moment. Can we welcome IMP's Director of Football and Chief Executive, two different people, dare I say, Jez George and Liam Scully. How are we doing, gents?
Oh, look at that. I'm well in the picture there, haven't I? Pretty good. We haven't got as good a background as you.
He's ready. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, the latest Lincoln City player. Welcome back, Conor McGrandles. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi there, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
So, Michael, first of all, thank you very much for your time. How have you found the first 2 weeks at Lincoln City?
Thanks for having me. It's great to meet you guys. First and foremost, I think, I keep saying the first 2 weeks have been an absolute whirlwind with the amount of games, getting to know new faces, getting to know the staff, the players. We really enjoyed it, really pleased to be here, really enjoying every day, getting in the building and getting going, really, if you like.
The good win against Cambridge helped, I imagine.
Yeah, I think winning always helps, doesn't it? It always helps to move the players, everybody to settle a little bit. And I think a good win, but I also think a really strong performance, which is really pleasing.